My wife and I went shopping this past weekend and we both found a pendant light that we really liked for our dining room. I looked at the price tag and thought, I can make that light. It's made up of one of those Edison style light bulbs in a simple socket with large Bentwood frame. I'll order the pendant light supplies online and get started with the build. I've got some 6/4 walnut that I think is going to look really great for this light, and one of the best things about making is being able to choose the size and finishes. Most of the furniture in our house is a darker stain, and the natural color of the walnut should look perfect. I'll start by cutting this piece just slightly oversized at 28 inches. This board came from my local lumber yard with rough edges, so I'll use this table saw joining jig to get a nice straight edge. With a feather board and a piece of scrap, I'll make some test cuts to find the perfect thickness. Now I'll switch over to the good board. I'll make 18 passes now, and I'll decide during assembly just how many I'll actually use. The one from the shop had 18, and I know I don't want to use any more than that. With the leftover section from my board, I'll rip some pieces that I can glue together to form the top and bottom rings of the light. I'll need to make 2 circles with about a 7-inch diameter for the bent strips to attach to. I'll use wood glue and some clamping pressure to join the boards, and I'll repeat this process twice so that I can cut out a top and a bottom ring. While I wait for these to dry, I need to make a mold to help shape my wood strips. I'll soak the strips in hot water to make them extra pliable, and I'll put them in the mold to help them take on the new bent shape. I'm making the mold out of a 2x10 and some dowels, only I didn't have enough dowel rods, so I found these colored pencils, which should work perfectly. The glue was finished drying on the top and bottom rings, so I traced a circle onto the wood and cut it out with the jigsaw, being careful to cut just outside of the line. I don't have a belt or a disc sander to help clean up my circles, so I tried sticking some sandpaper onto a hole saw bit on my drill press. This actually worked really well for cleaning up the jigsaw cuts. I sanded the faces of the circles with my random orbit sander, first with 100 and then 220 grit. I soaked the strips in hot water for about 30 minutes and immediately put them into the form. My pencils weren't very tall, so I could only do 3 at a time, but at least it looked cool. I needed to make a groove in the top and bottom rings to put the strips in during assembly. I rigged up this jig on my table saw that let me spin the piece while raising the height of the blade to carve out a groove. It worked well, but it didn't feel like the safest thing I'd ever done. To finish up the rings, I made a 3/4 inch hole on the top piece to allow room for the socket cord, and a larger ring on the bottom, I guess to let more light out. When the strips came out of the mold, they had quite a bit of spring back, but they're way more flexible and they seem to take a consistent bend, which is good. After finishing bending all 18 boards, I lightly sanded and finished all of the pieces with spray lacquer to help bring out the color and grain in the walnut. Then it was just a matter of pushing the strips into the top and bottom rings. The curve of the blade was perfect to fit 2 layers inside of the groove, which allowed me to overlap them slightly, and in the end I didn't even need to use any glue to hold them in. The light kit pieces came in and I wired one end of the cord to the socket. Another perk of making it yourself was I was able to pick out this really cool twisted cord that had a braided fabric over the wires. I think this is going to look really awesome with the style of the light. The hole in the bottom was way too small to get my hand or the bulb inside, but it should be easy enough to change the bulb through the slats on the side. And since they aren't glued in, I can always make extra room if I have to. In the end, I used about $15 worth of 6/4 walnut. The lighting supplies cost another $25 with shipping, and it went together in the better part of a weekend. I think that I'll use the money I saved on a planer or a stationary sander to help with future projects. Leave a comment if you've got a tool suggestion or if you've ever used wood bending in any of your projects. And be sure to like and subscribe for more woodworking and DIY projects in the future.